Hello, and welcome to the penultimate lesson on Rio. The title for today is Planning for Rio's Poor. Now, the key objectives that we want to cover today is to recap the economic challenges and opportunities in Rio, to learn how Rio has made changes to improve the lives of Rio's poor, and to be able to evaluate how effective planning has been to improve the conditions of Rio's poor. So make sure you got the title before moving on. So we're going to start off this lesson by recapping on the economic challenges and opportunities. You might want to make some notes of the key points that we make here. So firstly, the growth of industrial areas in Rio has boosted development and brought improvement to roads, transport and the environment. So the industrial areas are generally making things such as steel, or it might be oil refining. But basically, if money is being made in the area, that's going to generate taxes, and those taxes can then be used to spend on roads and transport and improving the environment. Increased wealth has attracted other companies to create more economic opportunities in the formal sector. So this is what we call the multiplier effect. So because the area is wealthy, because it's improving, this makes it more attractive for companies to come and set up their businesses there, which then creates more jobs, more money. Then that money will generate taxes where they can further improve the environment, which is then only going to attract more companies. And so you can see how it keeps moving around in this positive cycle. And we call this the multiplier effect. Types of employment include secondary jobs in steelworks and oil refining, but also tertiary jobs. They're service jobs such as banking and teaching. You might be able to notice in the pie chart that most of the jobs are in services. Now, a huge amount are in public services. They're services usually provided by the government, such as teachers, such as maybe bin men, those kind of things. But also there's the service industry, so that's things such as banking, which will loan money to people and get interest back. So it generates lots of money that way. However, there's still high levels of employment, over 20% in the favelas, so that's a big challenge in Rio. And the poorest 50% of Rio only gain around 13% of the city's total income, whereas the richest 1% earns 12% of the city's income. So the top 1% earn basically the same amount of money as the poorest half of the city. So there's an extreme inequality in wealth there. You may want to pause the video here so you can make any key notes before moving on. Here are some more economic challenges and opportunities. Again, make notes of the key points made. So unemployment in favelas is recorded as over 20%. However, most of these people will be working in the informal economy. So these jobs include drivers, labourers, maids, etc. So jobs where they'll probably be paid cash in hand, and it's not recognised by the government. They're usually poorly paid, irregular, and lack rights. Because they are not recognised by the government and because it's all unrecognised, they will not pay any taxes. And so the government does not raise any money from their work to help improve the city. The government is trying to tackle unemployment with the Schools of Tomorrow programme. So this includes improving education for young people in the favelas, a mixture of academic and practical courses to suit different people, and free childcare for parents, for young parents, so they can go back to school. Also, gang crime continues to dominate many favelas, reducing the quality of life of people who live there. In 2013, the pacifying police units were established to reclaim the favelas. So you might want to pause the video here so you can finish off making any keynotes. We're now going to have a look at what planning has been done for Rio's urban poor. Now, it's important to know that up until 1980, the favelas were not recognised by the authorities. They refused to acknowledge their existence and didn't even draw them on maps. I suppose that way they don't have to do anything or try and solve any of the problems that arise from them. But so after 1980, they realised that something had to be done. I suppose they had a choice. They could go around and demolish all of them and put everybody in social houses, so put high-rise flats in. They might have looked quite ugly and also probably would have met quite a lot of resistance from people who lived there. Um, so instead, what they decided to do was try and improve what was there. So try and improve access to the buildings there, and improve electricity supply and improve other services. Also, uh, some have been destroyed ahead of the Olympics, as we saw a little bit last lesson. What I want you to do now is the task at the bottom. So pick and explain at least 2 advantages of the housing shown in the blue boxes around photo A. So you can see the photo there. In the blue boxes, there are a number of different advantages shown. What I want you to do is to state them and also explain how would they help improve the quality of life of people who live there. So pause the video here and do that now. So here are some key ideas that you could have put for the last task, where you had to give and explain at least 2 advantages of the housing shown around the blue boxes in photo A. So moving people to Baja and developing rural areas will help reduce overcrowding. This should help ease issues such as pollution and traffic, because you're going to have fewer people driving around and crowded within that area. Raising taxes for the rich will help pay to improve the housing of the poor. This will then improve the productivity while attracting investment to the city. Everyone's a winner. If people who come to around the city can see that it's an improving place, that you've not got favela slums hanging around that are infested with crime and so on, then people are going to be more likely to try and set up their business there, to invest in the area, which is only again good to improve job opportunities. Also, if people are getting things like electricity, they're going to be able to work at night time, and so they improve productivity that way. People will not have to be wandering around trying to get water for part of their day, so that will mean that they can spend their time doing other things that are more useful. And so there's a lot of benefits to raising the taxes to help improve the housing for the poor. Developing cultural activities such as samba will help keep young people from joining the gangs. Okay, so give the young people something else to do rather than join the gangs. This will help hopefully to reduce the problem in the future. And also, forced eviction and rehousing people will improve the quality of their housing and ensure they have access to services such as water and electricity. So before you move on, make sure you've explained some of the advantages, at least 2 of them. So here is a key way in which Rio has planned for their urban poor. So make sure you put a subheading for Favela Bairro project. Now, this is a site and service scheme. So what that means is that they give the land and the services for people to then build their own houses. So they provide an area where they can build, and also make sure that they've got access to things like electricity and water supply. A good example of this is the Complexo do Alemão. Is a group of favelas with 60,000 people to the north of the city. So they've got lots of improvements to the area, as mentioned in the 2 boxes in the image. So paved and formally named roads, access to water supply and drainage system for improved sanitation, hillsides secured to prevent landslides or people relocated where necessary, building a new health and leisure and education facilities, installation of a cable car system across the Complexo de Alemão hillsides. Inhabitants are given 1 free return ticket a day so they can get into work and back. Access to credit to allow inhabitants to buy materials and improve their homes. So credit is like a loan. 100% mortgages so that people can buy their own homes. So you don't need to give any deposit for that. You don't need any extra money. It'd be a bit like paying rent. You can buy it, and then with no upfront cost at all. And a pacifying police force set up to control the drug gangs, so to patrol the area and reduce crime in the area. So it's pretty successful, but it's not perfect. So to the bottom, it gives you lots of ideas of why it's not perfect. So the budget of $1 billion will not cover every favela. The newly built infrastructure is not being maintained. Residents may lack the skills and resources to make repairs. More training is needed to improve literacy and employment, and rents rise in the improved favelas, which can make the poorest inhabitants even worse off. Now, here is your task. Make a table of the advantages and disadvantages of the Favela Bairro project. And the challenge as you do that is, can you color code these statements in the table into social, economic, and environmental factors? Some of them will likely be more than one, so it might be social and economic, or economic and environmental, for example. Pause the video here so you can do the task before moving on. So here are the positives and negatives of the Favela Bairro project. Make sure that you've got a list that's equal to this. Also, I've color coded them into social, economic, and environmental so that you can check your answers. Know that some I've colored it in 2 different colors because they may be social and economic, or economic and environmental, for example. You may be perfectly correct in disagreeing with me with these. It's just about how you would argue that statement. So how you would argue that they were social, economic, or environmental. Please check your answers before moving on. So before we move on to the final task, I just want to have a second look at the effect the Olympics had on the favelas in Rio. So around 3,000 houses were destroyed ahead of the games. This is because once they got the Olympics, they then had to build facilities for it. And if you think about Rio, there's not much flat available land around. So what they tended to do was destroy the houses of the favelas so that they could then build the facilities there. However, they didn't just destroy those houses and leave the people homeless. They created 800 new houses in the town of Campo Grande, which was in the west zone, 90 minutes drive from the city centre. Now, some of the people were very happy about this because they got new houses which would have been built from brick, have proper electricity wiring through it, and access to clean water. And so we're really pleased with what they got. However, others disliked it due to the lack of community, no shops, and nowhere for children to play, as well as the fact that it's 90 minutes from the city centre. In addition to this, however, many people found work in building the facilities for the Olympics and working in them once they were built. So you might want to make a few keynotes and finish a few keynotes by pausing it here before moving on. So here is the final task for today. I want you to answer this question in the Q&A. You could type it into Word and then copy and paste it into the Q&A if you like. So urban planning is an effective way to improve conditions for the urban poor. Do you agree? Use an example to explain your answer, so 6 marks. So I've given you some hints for a good answer. So start first of all by answering the question. So I agree to a strong extent, I disagree to a strong extent, or to a major or small or minor extent. Okay, that way you can access the upper mark straight away because I'll be able to see that you've answered the question. Use details from the example to illustrate your point of view. So make sure that you refer to facts and figures, names, etc. in your answer. Give both reasons why you agree and disagree. So make your answer balanced. So give ideas why it has been effective and why it hasn't been effective in improving people's lives. And finish off with a sentence to conclude your answer. Now you might choose to just do it on one area, such as the Favela Bairro project. But write your answer, send it to your teacher in Q&A, and then we'll be able to give you a mark out of 6 and give you any key feedback.